This is the DRS train.
Note to the Gulf states, that's how you write a national anthem. I'm Peter Brook, I'm joined by Nedzo's F1 Gridbox and Chizzy, and you're listening to the DRS Train podcast. So the Hungarian Grand Prix has now come and gone. We have a bit of a summer break ahead of us. And to help us talk about this race, we have a new guest. Joining us from Hungary is Chizzy. So Chizzy, welcome to the DRS Train podcast. Give us a few thoughts of what you thought of your home race.
Hello, Peter. Hello, Nedzo. Thank you for letting me be on this podcast. I think as a race, considering that it was in the dry without a single yellow flag, it was probably about as good as it can be expected, to be honest. There was a lot of action at the start, and then people started going on to multiple different strategies that all managed to converge in the end with the fight for the lead. So I think overall it's a fairly solid race considering the circumstances.
Nedzo?
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. It's just, we often find with certain circuits nowadays, Hungary usually is one of them, that they just produce naff races that have no substance. But that wasn't one of them. There was action, there was entertainment, and I think the storylines coming in and into and out of the last race before the summer break, there's a couple to look at when we're looking at the grand scheme of things, whether it be the standings, whether it be certain teams going up or down the pack. So at least we've got something to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, Hungary, by nature of the way the circuit is designed, it produces races where strategy really matters. And that was certainly the case with this one. I mean, qualifying was quite bizarre because of how close it was in Q3 and the fact that everyone lost 6 or 7 tenths in Q3 to Q2, which is quite significant considering that all that was a small drop in temperature to make that much of a difference. So McLaren on Saturday, they weren't quite the fastest in the race. Surprise, surprise, they were. So we ended up with, another... It ended up being more of a we have 1988 at home kind of race with them, because it was all about strategy. And yeah, we saw the slightest hint of a battle near the end. I mean, if they just crashed into each other, that would have been much more interesting for everybody, I think. But obviously didn't. I mean, I don't know about you two. I'm quite surprised that Lando held out with that one stop and made it work, because I get it's hard to overtake, but the tyre deficit was so huge that really, I think Oscar should have been able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, it actually wasn't that big of a tyre deficit. There was like a 15 lap or so tyre deficit because of obviously Lando's first stop was delayed by about 15 laps, and then Oscar pitted another 50 laps later. So it does kind of feel like there was like a 30 lap tire delta, but it was only 50 laps actually. And I mean, we saw Alonso go on to this insane long first stint for like 40 laps or something on the mediums, which seemed to be the better race tire, or well, in my opinion at least. So yeah, I was somewhat surprised that he managed to do that, but I think, it was a race that really was decided by Leclerc. Like when Leclerc pitted and then Oscar decided to cover or try to go for Leclerc instead of just trying to hold out in front of Norris with the same delta that he had when he pitted to Norris. That's the delta he would have had, except the roles would have been reversed. So yeah, that was an interesting dynamic, I think.
I do tend to. This is the thing with Piastri and Norris, is that, like, for example, with this is just the McLaren thing with the strategies. And they were telling Piastri, do you want to cover off Leclerc or do you want to cover off Norris? They should be the ones making that decision. The strategists, the people who know the optimal race conditions and whether you should be going for Norris, they should be knowing that, and they shouldn't be putting that decision on the driver, because at the end of the day, the driver doesn't know the grand scheme of things. The driver doesn't know how quickly certain drivers are going to close, how the race is going to pan out. And that decision shouldn't be put on them. And then towards the end of the race, Piastri turned into Norris with some of the moves he was trying to overtake with. I mean, if you're going to be catching as much as he was, realistically, you want to wait until the final lap, or when you have an actual good run, not just sending ludicrous dive bombs at turn 1 and locking up like he did on the penultimate lap, I believe it was. It was a badly executed, not badly executed, but just it could have been better executed from both from McLaren in general, and more so from Piastri's side. But I suppose for Norris, I mean, you could say he persevered with the strategy and kept a calm head when when he was in that situation where he had to see what strategy he was going to do. But overall, this was a poor weekend for McLaren, both operationally and in terms of the drivers.
Because I understand that it's best to kind of delegate to the driver when it's just a general tyre strategy of how does the tyre feel? Do you think we should do this? Because they're the ones that know, well, actually, you might have your data, but this is how it actually feels for me to drive. But when it comes to, I mean, he said afterwards it probably was a mistake to kind of fixate so much on Leclerc because then he kind of forgot, because I think his general assumption was, oh, they put Lando on a one stop because you have to try something different. Otherwise, from his perspective, he's just going to be behind me and whatnot. And because he did lose in doing that at first, he lost a lot of time, which they didn't really gain back enough. But even so, it's I think at the end it didn't help that they had the traffic, and that did get in the way a bit because this is a circuit where there's only really one overtaking spot, and so you don't get that many options to actually pass. But looking at the standings, there's a 9 points in it. I'm still amazed it's that close. Even though Lando has won 3 of the last 4 races, it's just like, how is it still this close? Especially after what happened in Canada and the general. I mean, earlier in the season, Oscar had 3 consecutive wins. The general vibe of the year is that Oscar has been the stronger one, but then there have been, like, he was clearly very unhappy after Silverstone. This time, he didn't seem so annoyed. I think he was just like, well, it's the way the cards fell, and that's fine. But sometimes Lando seems to be able to get under his skin a little bit. And it's just like, it's closer than it should be, really.
The reason why Piastri and Norris are this close is because of Australia. Had Australia, at least Piastri going off, not happened in the way that it did, he would be at least a race wins ahead. And that's kind of how the vibe of the season feels, because up until this last stretch of races, it was a case that Piastri would win a couple and then Norris would win one, and then Piastri would win a couple and then Norris would win one. I mean, Norris is gaining some form of consistency, but there's every chance that as soon as we come back from a summer break, even at a track that he's strong at, like Zandvoort, that he's just going to fall back into his old form of getting seconds, thirds, even 4th places, I believe he's got at some points this season. And that's, this is the thing. You said 1988 at home. It is basically like that. I'd say it's more like a 2016 where 2 drivers they've clearly got the potential to do really well on their day, but they just aren't executing most times. And it drives certain fans up the wall because they want to see a title battle between 2 drivers that are really pushing themselves to the limit, kind of like a Schumacher-Hakkinen or you could say 2017 Hamilton versus Vettel, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think the 1988 is probably sort of a better analysis because of the way it fits like their personalities, sort of like Piastri and Prost and Senna and Norris are definitely similar in the sense of like Piastri might be overall lacking a tiny bit of pace, but he more than makes up for it with consistency and perseverance and level-headedness. And then Norris and Senna, although had more pace, crashed more often, made more mistakes because they were trying to go for literally everything. So I think that in that sense, obviously a very different caliber of drivers, but the analogy makes sense in that way.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose.
I was going to say, are you saying that Lando Norris likes 15-year-old girls?
Well, 15-year-old girls like him, so.
Yeah. I mean, I suppose Prost is. I mean, Oscar is, stone cold and devoid of emotion and normal human feelings. So I guess he operates purely on rationality and logic in races. So I guess he's like Prost. But Lando is considerably less intelligent than Senna, so it's not necessarily as adept there. But yeah. I mean, by the end they'd broken out to like 20 seconds ahead, even though they'd spent a large part of the race behind Leclerc. So obviously the pace is still there. It just didn't, for whatever reason, they didn't quite have it on in qualifying. But yeah, it just would have been like at the end. I mean, got that penultimate lap, he was so close to hitting him, and I was like, "Can you?" I mean, even George joked about this in the briefing room. He was like, "Oh, can you?" The cool room was like, "Oh, mate, why didn't you just T-bone him there? It would have been so much more interesting." I was like, well, it would, to be honest, because they've won the constructors. They've got more than twice as many points as Ferrari. So you can afford to just crash into each other a few times and give us, the recipe for an actual title battle. Because, okay, it resets it with you. It makes sweet fuck all difference to the Constructors' Championship. So why not? Because that would have produced Alonso would have been on the podium if they'd done that. Like, it would have been amazing.
Bortoletto would have been fourth. I think Crofty said during practice at one point that if Ferrari scored 1-2s all the way up until Cota, they still wouldn't have as many points as McLaren.
I mean, that McLaren is third and fourth.
Pardon?
That's presuming that McLaren is third and fourth.
I don't know. Maybe it's one of those Crofty moments where he gets it wrong.
The only way that would work is that if they get 1-2s for every race and McLaren are out of the points every time, because if he was saying that and he's like, and they score points, then it's like, well, that means McLaren's won the championship already. Yeah. With 11 races to go, 10 races left, something like that. I mean, they'll have it wrapped up. How many points ahead are they? They're a good 250 points ahead. That's about how many points? Actually, 500. Oh my god, they're 300. They're 299 points ahead, which is about 6 or 7 races.
Yes.
So they're going to have this wrapped up probably somewhere around Baku. Yeah. What's after that? Not Sochi. What's even in the God? Is it like? Oh god, what's it? It's like Cota. I don't know.
Flyway races like Cota, Mexico, Brazil,
Singapore. Yeah, I'm trying to think because if they're already nearly 300 points ahead, how many races? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, there are 10 races left. I think somewhere around Baku, Singapore, they could wrap up the constructors.
Yeah.
Which is it's interesting because it's like Mercedes in their day, they weren't breaking out leads like this, even with Hamilton and Rosberg getting 1-2s every other race.
I think it's partly due to reliability and partly due to the fact that although yes, we've had Red Bull have been quickest at certain points or second quickest at some points, Mercedes have been at some points and Ferrari have been at some points. It is quite variable between races, and like for example in like 2014 and 2016 when Mercedes were at their most dominant, they were like in 2014 it was obviously Red Bull being second quickest at most circuits. In 2016 it was obviously
Ferrari. 2015 Vettel got 3 wins.
Yeah.
I mean, whereas this time we've had like Ferrari have had a double disqualification. They've had 2 races now where one of the drivers hasn't scored points. McLaren's had 1 race where there wasn't a double points finish. Red Bull have had almost every race not being a double points finish, and Mercedes as well have had a massive chunk. So yeah, that's kind of partially seems to explain it.
Yeah, that's that was what I was trying to say. Like the reason why is because Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari effectively have one driver. To be honest, like Antonelli hasn't been performing as much. Hamilton hasn't been performing, and then whoever is in the second Red Bull seat might as well not drive the car because they're just wasting money by crashing it. Like that's absolutely terrible. Unlike in, for example, like 2015 or 2014, where Williams had a fairly consistent Bottas and Massa, or Red Bull had Ricciardo and Vettel, or Ricciardo and Kvyat, who are not great drivers, but definitely put on more consistent showings than Tsunoda or Antonelli or 2025 Hamilton. So I think that's the main reason, is that if effectively McLaren is a 2-man band and everybody else is as a 1-man band going against them with like slower cars. So I think both McLaren drivers alone could be leading the constructors. So that's just like we are halfway into the season, and they both of them already outscored every single other team.
Yeah,
I think that's crazy.
It's very Max Verstappen 2023 coded. I do feel compelled to defend Antonelli somewhat, and maybe that serves as a good segue to talk about Mercedes. This was a race where a lot of people were like, oh, maybe it'll work for them, because the second anyone mentions cool conditions, it's like Mercedes mode activated. George was in contention for pole. It was so close. I think they said it was I think that there was a stat. It was the closest top 10 in Formula 1 history in qualifying, and the closest top 4 since 1961. Which it is interesting because back then qualifying was not close. There were like seconds between people, and I'm assuming that they're referring to Monza because of the slipstream effect.
It might be that, or it might be somewhere like Clem, where it's just super long straights, and if you're in like a Ferrari, for example, in 1961, as long as you get the corners right, you're pretty much all on the same bar anyway.
Yeah, and back that year, the cars had like 10 horsepower, so there wasn't much difference between them. Yeah. But Mercedes. So I mean, George wasn't really in contention for the win, but then he got caught up with him battling Leclerc and him being his classic, teacher's pet snitch version of himself being like, "Oh, that's a penalty. He did that wrong." Blah blah blah. Like, go to the stewards. All that shit. Antonelli got himself a point. I mean, this bad run that he's had, some of it is him screwing up, but a lot of it is just reliability. It just seems very convenient that as soon as Lewis leaves that car, it decides it needs to start breaking down all the time. But also, him and Lewis, they seem almost joined at the hip because they fight each other a lot. But also, when one of them does badly, the other one also does badly, especially in qualifying. And he got himself done. He got knocked out of Q3 because of track limits or something. But if you think in this run he's got 1 point and a podium and then a bunch of retirements, it's very weird. And it meant his points average, which was like, I think he was top 5 at one point out of every driver ever, he's plummeted into like 150th now or something. They're kind of doing one man's thing, but Mercedes, I mean, it's going well enough, and they've already got a win already with George, and let's see what they can do in the future.
Yeah, can I just talk about that move of like the Leclerc Russell almost crash, where obviously Leclerc got penalized, and that was a move he borrowed from obviously Max Verstappen, who else? And it's something that probably shouldn't be penalized. It's a very gray area in the rules where what Leclerc and Max last year in Austria against Norris, for example, did is that they angle the car towards the apex, and then they start braking with the steering wheel in a straight, like with the steering wheel in a straight position. So they don't actually turn while braking. They brake in a straight line, just not in a straight line compared to the circuit. But if you look at only like the telemetry, for example, you couldn't tell that they aren't braking in a straight line because as long as the brake pedal is down, their steering wheel is not turned. So it's a very gray area in the rules of whether that is legal or not. They tend to penalize it regardless of whether it is a collision or not, but it probably shouldn't be penalized since it's not technically an illegal thing to do as far as the rules are concerned.
I mean, under no circumstances is that a penalty because you can't necessarily. It's like applying the highway code to this because it's like, oh, you'll fail your test if you cause another driver to have to suddenly change speed or direction through your own actions. But it's like with this, like nobody was pushed off track. There was no contact. No one died. It's racing. Like it's fine. But that's not a penalty. It just isn't.
It reminds me of another incident that happened at Hungary a couple of years ago, Barrichello and Schumacher, with the pit wall in 2010. I will still maintain to this day there are people who say that. I mean, Barrichello said that Schumacher should have been black flagged. That shouldn't have even been an investigation. The rule is 1 car width to the outside of a circuit. He gave him 1 car width, and what are you crying about, essentially?
Obviously, it's a bit close to the bone because it's a concrete wall, but yeah, it's fine at the end of the day. And I mean, he knows. I mean, Michael and him and Barrichello together, they're both experienced enough to know what they're doing.
Yeah.
But with this, there isn't even a concrete wall anywhere near. There's nothing wrong with it. It's just George being a snitch and whatnot, and trying to get freebies and everything as he likes to do. Antonelli, as he said, you'll see if he gets into a rhythm. Otherwise, Mercedes, they're kind of more or less probably in a slightly better state than they were last year. But it's very much a battle. It's very much a battle for second with Ferrari and not even with Red Bull anymore, to be honest.
Yeah, I think Red Bull is sort of falling out of it. Like last week, it seemed like in Spa that maybe there is some hope for Max, but nah, there just isn't any hope. It's absolutely over for Red Bull. I think Max threw in the towel quite literally during FP2, which was very funny. Like he grabbed the towel out of the cockpit and threw it out. Like talk about throwing in the towel. That was kind of funny. I think obviously Hungary is a very low speed circuit, which may not suit Red Bull as well as high speed tracks. Next week is Monza, so if we see them be terrible in Monza again, then Max might as well just take the rest of the year off and focus on sim racing or something like that. I don't know, because clearly this car is not gonna go anywhere further because they got probably the last upgrade package of the year and of the era of this ground effect car. So yeah, it's kind of over for them.
Yeah, so Mercedes, they're probably not going to be fighting Red Bull as much, but they will be for the rest of the year fighting Ferrari, or, well, at least one Ferrari at this point. That was a very interesting weekend for them. Really, a qualifying of 2 halves and a race almost of 1 half with how that went. I mean, Leclerc, he was surprised as everybody to get pole. We know he's not going to win because 80% of the time he doesn't win when he gets pole. And also just McLaren are McLaren, water is wet. He was getting so mopey on the radio because the thing is, after the first pit stops, like everything was fine because they tried to undercut him and it didn't work. And then it was after the race, I think he said there was something wrong with the chassis, which is why his pace went out the window. And he fell to, 40, 50 seconds behind the McLarens at the end. So he was annoyed that he couldn't even get on the podium. And now his radio moaning, it's like, I think he's beginning to realize that Ferrari are the problem this year and it's time to go somewhere else. The issue is there's nowhere else to go because everyone else they're all locked in with drivers, which again is possibly some of the reason that Max confirmed he is staying at Red Bull next year. Because even for him, there's nowhere else to go because the only other really desirable team for anyone at the moment is McLaren. So he had a pretty miserable race, but kind of nothing compared to Lewis. To get himself knocked out in Q2 again, he was being, even by his standards, excessively defeatist and self-deprecating in the interviews and in the race as well. I thought, okay, they were targeting 6th or 7th. I thought, okay, we've seen this before with Lewis. He qualifies badly. He always ends up in the points. And this time he didn't. He started 12th. He finished 12th. At a circuit where he's got, 9 pole positions. He's won here 7 or 8 times before, something like that. I think he's never finished any lower than 4th at Hungary before. And it's his first finish outside the points. And yeah, now I'm thinking maybe he is contemplating retirement because nothing is working. And he was saying in the interview after qualifying, well, no, they just need a better driver because Leclerc was on pole. And I don't think that's ever actually happened before, but he's knocked himself out in Q2 and his teammate takes pole position. So I think going into the summer break, Ferrari are going to have 2 very unhappy drivers.
Yeah, definitely. Very Ferrari-like. I think that was in 2022 as well. That was definitely the case of like they both went into the summer break, Sainz and Leclerc, with just like the most depressed state possible. So Ferrari is just sort of repeating themselves once again. And yeah, I mean, Hamilton just put on the classic Tsunoda performance of going out in Q2 while your teammate gets pole and then not even managing to get into the point and getting beaten by Antonelli and Bortoletto and both Aston Martins and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a bit embarrassing, I think, for Hamilton to perform like that. And then Leclerc was very, I don't know, interesting. I couldn't really tell what's going on because like he was constantly radioing like, we should discuss this thing, we should discuss those things, and those things are terrible, these problems are whatever. So like there was clearly something wrong and he just didn't want anybody else to know what it was. He didn't want to let us know what they were talking about in this context. And yeah, it was very interesting how everybody expected obviously that yeah, he will lead off the start and then just get overtaken because he's in a much slower car that he somehow managed to put on pole. And then he just was just fast enough and wasn't getting overtaken. And then after the first stop, he started complaining that like, yeah, we managed this wrong and I would have managed it differently. And he still had all the pace in the world. There wasn't anything wrong. And then after the second stop, his pace just like disappeared. And then over the next 20 laps, he lost 40 seconds to the McLarens, and even Alonso, with much more used tires, gained 10 seconds on him on the last 50 laps. Like he just really lost all pace that he had. He was probably one of the slowest cars out on track. Like probably you'd have to go back to like the Ocon train to find slower cars than him because he was going so slowly. Like it was very weird how after one of the stops, they didn't seem to make any like front wing adjustments that could have explained it. He just randomly lost like 2 seconds of pace and the car got visibly undrivable. So it was, yeah, I have no idea what Ferrari are doing, but I guess they are being Ferrari is the answer.
That pretty much summed up Charles' race. But I do want to go back to Lewis here because there's been a lot of discourse, especially online, about how there are some Lewis fans who just don't accept that that Lewis should be performing like this. They are a minority, but they do exist. And there's some that say when you get to this age in Formula One, it's normal to perform like this. And well, first of all, Fernando Alonso exists, and second of all, Michael Schumacher exists. Like Michael Schumacher in 2012 proved that Formula One drivers, even well past the age of 40, can can perform possibly not at a championship level, but 2012 Schumacher was the best of his comeback, and I think had he been in, for example, a Red Bull or a Ferrari, he could have at least taken Vettel or Alonso somewhat to an extent of a way there. But I see that's the thing. Even with other drivers who have had stinky ends of their careers, like even guys like Vettel who were like younger than that, they show glimpses of and flashes of potential. And aside from one sprint race, Lewis has had none of those, which makes me feel like he's just completely gone. Like I know he's had previous seasons where he's been off kilter, like 2011, like 2009. But even then, in those seasons, he had good performances. He had flashes of brilliance. This season just has none of that. And yeah, I do finally think that he's past it. Like we saw in 24, he would qualify badly and then he'd rocket his way up through the pack. And then when he did qualify well, he'd do decently well and got 2 wins, even if both of them were somewhat inherited due to factors outside of his control. We haven't had any of that this year. And to not even have a podium when your teammate has pole positions and 3, maybe 4 podiums, I don't know the exact number, but it's just not good enough. And I know Lewis is defeatist. He's a PR merchant. He knows that when he says, "Oh, I'm so bad," his entire fan base will crowd around him and coddle him and be like, "Oh yeah, don't worry, Lewis, we're still behind you." And he knows he'll get attention. And he knows it'll be positive attention. But yeah, he just needs to step up. And if he doesn't step up, he needs to get out of that seat so someone who's clearly good enough can take it, whether it be Behrman, whether it be Sainz returning to the fray. I don't know.
If he can't step up, he should step down.
Yes.
Yeah. Now I'm looking at it, and part of me thinks maybe he was better off retiring after 21, even with the way it ended. Because the thing is, since then, like how many standout performances has he put on? Almost none. But what he has done is put on a lot of his very worst performances since 22, and this weekend have been.
23 was good, but that's about it.
Yeah, I mean it was good. I mean, obviously it was still no wins, but that's only because Max won everything. But otherwise, there's been a lot. Like last year was miserable. I mean, we saw, and he's had first lap accidents in Spa, Qatar, Kota as well, and stuff like that. He's doing all of that, and this year, I mean, this has gone as I expected it because it's like, well, no, this is a recurring thing with Ferrari. We've seen this going back decades that everyone struggles to join it, even people with a lot of prestige. I mean, Mansell and Prost had a pretty miserable time there. In the past 40 years, the only people Michael is the only person who's actually had a good time at Ferrari, let's be honest. And he did that by gutting it out and turning it into his own team, effectively. But now we've seen he's out-qualified Leclerc once, he's beaten him in a race once, which is Silverstone. He won the sprint in China, but sprints don't count, and all he had to do was lead from the front. And otherwise, it's just not worked. And it's like, yeah, what did you expect? You really were better off staying at Mercedes.
Yeah. I sort of have this opinion that I think Ace shared a few months ago of like, what everybody does this year is kind of irrelevant. Like, what's important are 2 McLarens, since they are fighting for the title, and then the second Alpine seat, the Visa RBs, and then the second Red Bull seat. Everybody else kind of doesn't matter what they do, because next year the cars are going to be so different. Like, who knows? Maybe Hamilton will find his old Form 1, his driving cars that are probably most similar to the 2008 era F1 cars. And who knows, maybe like Alpine will bring Duan back and he will suddenly become one of the best drivers because these really fit his driving style or something like that. Like, it's kind of difficult. Nobody should really retire, in my opinion, which is why Alonso keeps stuffing it out in terrible Aston Martins in the hope that next year, with the Adrian Newey designed car, that he obviously has more experience in similar cars than anybody else on the grid. Maybe then he will have the opportunity to fight at the front, which is what every driver really hopes for next year, since it's gonna be definitely a major rule change, in my opinion, probably the largest since the 2017 wide body change, probably. So yeah, it's gonna be very interesting. I don't think anybody should retire, because who knows what's gonna happen next year.
I mean, Lewis in general, he doesn't have the excuse of, a family or anything that a lot of, because that tends to, we see this with so many drivers, their priorities do change in life once they have kids. And they feel like it's not worth taking risks or whatever. He doesn't have that. He has so many other interests and passion projects as well. That maybe he might think it's time to focus on those. He's also very good at distracting himself, and we've seen this in the past because he tends to dwell on whatever's going on in the world and that or something, and so that maybe can affect him as well, or he feels like he needs to do something with that. But yeah, he could very easily retire and just go all in with his fashion line and with the Hamilton Commission or the 44 Commission, whatever it's called, and do all of that. There was this weird thing of that Instagram story he shared of saying 808 with a burning matchstick. I was thinking, okay, well that either symbolizes his retirement announcement or he's burning the Ferrari factory down. And what it actually meant was he's launching some pretentious fashion line thing or something. I don't know what. Yeah, so that's not what it was. Yeah, I think when he does it, it'll be a big spectacle. I think when he does announce his retirement, whenever that comes, which maybe we'll see. Maybe it'll be sooner than later. Next team up, not one we cover this early in the podcast normally, is Aston Martin. I don't know where that came from. I mean, I'm assuming that Newey's been working his magic with some of the upgrades, even though the last race they brought a very nice set of downgrades that didn't work for them. But they've had is this their first double points this year? It was like reminiscent of 2023. I mean, okay, the race pace did not exist. I mean, we saw that almost immediately that Alonso created another absolutely insane DRS chain, ka-ching. Stroll just held on, did his thing. Yeah, so no race pace, quali so close to getting pole or front row, but yeah, the win, he'll have to wait again for that win.
I think just like a lot of the other drivers, especially the McLaren drivers in qualifying, apparently Alonso lost like 3/10 from a mistake. And he could have been on pole. I mean, obviously, it's unlikely he would have done anything from that position, but he did well. And the thing is with Stroll, we've seen with Stroll this year, in the dry races especially, he's been nowhere compared to Fernando. This race, he was somewhere, and I think the gap was only about 10 seconds by the end of the race, which is passable, I think. If those two do get the fastest car next year, I think we'll have an interesting title battle. I do think we'll have at least an interesting battle, and I want to see that because it'd be funny to see. It'll be the most Fernando Alonso thing to, after 20 years of having to deal with inter-team politics, slow cars, incompetent teams, incompetent himself, to lose a title to Lance Stroll would be the most comical thing I've ever seen in my entire life. But yeah, it's a good step in the right direction, but they need to keep making these steps in the right direction because, as we've seen with Aston Martin, they do tend to bring downgrades, and if they continue like they have done previously, it's one step forward with this upgrade and then 3 steps backward with a downgrade next out of the summer break or whatever. We don't know where they're going to be truly honest. Now I hope they're close because it's always good to see a team like Aston Martin do well, because even if they are bankrolled by billionaires, they're still kind of the underdogs that Force India were, and I do hope that they can do well. Newey is clearly having an effect, and that's good. Maybe Ferrari will be ruining that they didn't try and pay him $1 million.
Yeah, I think if next year the Aston is not gonna be competitive, both drivers are gonna retire. So maybe Felipe Drugovich will get to F1 after all, but.
Stop it with the Felipe Drugovich propaganda. I swear, I was arguing on Twitter with someone today who tried to say that because I was talking about how Drugovich was only a third season F2 champion and that he's shown no merits to actually get to Formula One, and then this person started talking about how Juan Pablo Montoya took a while to get used to things. It's like, please don't compare Felipe Drugovich to Juan Pablo Montoya ever again when it comes to pre-F1 achievements. Like, no.
Yeah.
I mean, did Montoya ever really get used to everything? Because he was a bit of a wrecking ball for 5 years, really.
Yeah.
Very interesting one, but still. But yeah, I mean, if both drivers do retire next year, that blows the market wide open because those Aston Martin seats become very, very high value. But if that happens, I don't think Drugovich is going to get that, or Crawford, or that other one who Boyer. There's that girl as well. Like, they're going to give it to Max is going to want that. Leclerc might covet it. Lewis might covet it. It's going to have to go with that, all because Adrian Newey's there. They're going to want just a free ticket to the championship. Because again, these are the aero regs coming up. Have got Newey written all over them as well. So it's yeah. I think that'll be the place to go. But yeah, something clearly it's worked, and Alonso was feeling good. Stroll was being positive for once in his life. So they've it meant that they shot up 2 places in the constructors because the midfield battle is so close at the moment. And even in the race, there was like 10 seconds covering 5th to 9th or whatever. It was quite a close battle by the end. So yeah, good for them. They've done something. When you consider how miserable the start of the season was for Alonso, we thought, oh, he's just going to retire soon. But no, there's a bit of a spring in his step. Same thing happening with the other green team, Kick Sauber. This Bortoletto's had his best race of the season to finish 6th. Very good from him. Made it Q3 again. He's starting to get into a stride and actually get some attention. Hulkenberg is becoming a master of being shit in qualifying, though. I mean, he got himself knocked out in Q1 again. Did he get penalised twice for a jump start, or did the notification just came up twice? That happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he just didn't go anywhere in the race. So for him, kind of crappy. But yeah, Bortoletto had an excellent race.
Maybe what's happened with Hulkenberg is he's got his podium and he's like, right, peace out. I'm just going to do the rest of his season really quietly and then piss off.
Maybe. I mean, he is at the moment. He is contracted with Audi. Him and Bortoletto are both contracted with them next year, aren't they?
I think so.
So
yeah.
sticking out, and he's 38, so he's not ancient. I mean, yeah, so he could keep going if he wanted. But again, he's got a kid. Yeah, he got his podium. But even so, I would be thinking it is sort of tragic to be on like 260, 270 race starts to have one podium and no wins at that level that's not brilliant.
But the thing is, he's like the Martin Brundle of the 2010s and 2020s. It's just he's never had a chance to actually. I mean, he's had chances to get race wins, Brazil 2012, but he should have never had a chance to get a race win with the cars he's been driving. So I think, as much as yes, race starts and he's in the same race starts echelon as driving Felipe Massa, David Coulthard. At the end of the day, he's not been in the same cars that those guys have, and I think you can look back on it, and at least he can look back and say he is a bit unique in that fact.
Yeah, I think like throughout his entire career, there have been 3 wins where he could have been the one to get that. He could have had a similar sort of car in Maldonado 2012, Gasly 2020, and Ocon 2021. I think those are the only 3 times where had he been in that car or a similar sort of car, he could have won. So over his entire 260 race career, there have been 3 wins with the opportunity for him that could have been him to win. And he wasn't lucky enough to do that, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't think he's gonna be incredibly upset that he doesn't have a win. I think he's gonna be very much respected as the sort of GOAT of the midfield driver for 20 years, essentially.
We got a Maldonado mention on the podcast, and it wasn't even from me.
I know. Had to.
Right, who came after them? It was
Lawson, Racing Bulls.
Racing Bulls, yeah. Now we're in this funny situation of Racing Bulls. They've given us 2008 realness, like where they've become faster than the A team, and you can tell that with Red Bull, no one cares anymore. They've just given up. Max, through gritted teeth, is yes, I am staying next year. Wiping tears from his eyes and whatnot. But Racing Bulls, yeah, another solid weekend. I mean, Lawson has matched. Unless he was better last week, or he loves getting 8th places. He keeps doing that over and over again. Yeah, he just knuckled down, did his thing. He's being not shit now, which is good. Hadjar was sort of burdened because he got hit on the knuckles with gravel very early on in the race, which would have hurt a lot for the rest of the race. And then he just finished outside the points. But he managed to hold up Lewis for quite a long time. I think the blue flags helped. But yeah, Lewis was on much fresher tyres on his mediums and he was on old hards. Kept him behind. Couldn't quite get Antonelli for 10th, but even so, solid race all around for them.
Yeah. Can I just say on the topic of that gravel incident, I have no idea why they are putting gravel next to the track. Next to the track should be grass and not gravel, because not only can the drivers potentially hurt themselves, but also there's a lot of gravel on the track. Like, I don't know if you've seen the shots of the last couple of laps. The entire offline of the track is just covered in gravel. Like, if you went through that, your entire wheel would be covered in rocks because all the cars sort of threw the gravel up over the course of the race. I have no idea why they keep doing it. And also the other thing is Hadjar and Lawson can't seem to be good at the same time. Sort of like Hadjar was very, very good at the beginning of the season and Lawson was just absolutely trash. And then now that Lawson is starting to find his form, Hadjar has gone to shit. So I don't know why this is happening. Maybe they brought some upgrades that favored Lawson's driving style or whatever. But yeah, it's I have no idea how AlphaTauri is doing this while being faster than Red Bull.
To your point about the gravel, I think everyone took a leaf out of Austria 2023's book and just kind of went with the kind of, not the gravel strips. They haven't. I don't think any other track has properly replicated that. But that's the kind of path they're trying to go down. And I do think that when it comes to track limits and trying to make people avoid going that sort of stuff, gravel is more effective than grass, because you can go on grass and still not lose much time, whereas gravel is pretty much instantly a kind of a decrease of speed. You could argue, yes, they do need to switch them around, because of if there is gravel appearing offline, that is rather dangerous. But it's a tough situation to be in. We had this problem when we had the track limits issues a couple of years ago, and now it's cropping up back again if there's gravel appearing offline. I think there is a good conversation to be had, but I think the only way where you can satisfy everyone is to perfect the system that Paul Ricard has, where you have like certain abrasive pieces of tarmac. And I think that's the only way you can properly make it work. Obviously, without the, I think Peter calls them the psychedelic like colors, the blues and the blacks.
Caesar inducing.
Yeah, Caesar inducing. I think yeah, tarmac is the way to go if you want the best of all worlds. But if you're a track that can't afford to do that, then grass and gravel is the way to go.
The other thing is they put it at turn 12. I've never seen somebody get like a track limits violation at turn 12, which is that right-hander, 90-degree right-hander before the two hairpins. Why would you put it there? Like I've never seen anybody get a track limits violation or lose a lap because of that. So I have no idea why they even put it there. There was just always tarmac there, and it functioned perfectly fine. So I have no idea. Hungary is generally one of the less controversial tracks when it comes to track limits, and that the two corners at Mansell and Alesi, which could be like track limit violations, the really high speed corners, nobody got, like, I think there was one lap deletion, and that was also a lap where I think Colapinto went completely off the track and lost the car and whatever. So like it wasn't even like a huge problem that people were gaining time by leaving the track or whatever. So like I have no idea why they put it to places where it shouldn't be, and then it like injures the driver. Like just they should, I don't know, think about a different solution, I think.
I think the reason why Hungary's not followed the modern pattern of having lots of track limits issues is because they hardly have any flat curbs, and the places where they do have flat curbs, ironically, are the places where you get track limits. Like you look through the entire course, maybe turn one is the only place where you have a flat curb, where you maybe a flatter curb where you don't have the track limits issues. Because you look turn 2, turn 3, they're fairly serrated, fairly high, and the rest of the midfield, the middle part of the lap is just curb central essentially. So I think maybe if tracks want to do that, they should go back to kind of not like 1970s levels where you have curbs that are like a 45-degree angle. If you go anywhere near them, your car goes flying into the outer stratosphere, like I've seen in a lot of sim racing games. But yeah, I think that the modern flat curb obsession maybe has contributed to a lot of the track limits issues we have nowadays.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
I mean, it's like turn 12 as an example. It's one of those ones where even if you run wide and get track limits, you don't gain any advantage from that because you're on the outside of a relatively slow corner. I mean, you need gravel of some kind, but like a strip of grass and then a bit of gravel, because otherwise, yeah, it does kick it up or something. Or if you're going to keep having runoff, like I said, it needs to be Paul Ricard, because the only disadvantage of runoff is that because it's not been run on, it's green, so it has less grip. Or it becomes like an ice rink, like the drag strip at Hockenheim. But if you make it so, actually, no, not only is it going to slow me down, but it's going to fuck my tyres up as well, then it's like that. There you go. That's why you don't go on it.
If you talk about Hockenheim 2019, they don't race in the rain anymore, so you don't have to worry about that anymore.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, but no, good race for them. New man, is it? It's not Alan Permain, is it? Who's the new TP?
It is Alan Permain.
Oh, it is him. Okay, I thought he was at Aston Martin.
No.
Who's the one? Andy Cowell.
Yeah, Andy Cowell.
Andy Cowell. Yeah, I thought it was still the crack, but it's not him, is it? No. Yeah. There's So then from the B team to the A team, Red Bull. Yeah, Max. Well, Max, he's thrown the towel in. He said we're not winning any more races this year. He's conceded he's staying because I mean, he's still under contract for next year, but then he didn't meet the performance clause apparently, so he couldn't break the contract. But then even if he did, where is there to go? Because he can't go to Mercedes without kicking out either George or George because he's not going to be teammates to George. And all the other teams suck, and he's not going to kick Lando out, especially if Lando wins the championship from McLaren. So he's stuck there, and maybe they'll have something. Because again, Pierre Vacher, I mean, he's been Newey's understudy for a while. He's been technical director technically for a few years now, so he's technically designed some of their very best cars. And maybe they'll just decide, okay, we're going to build a car that both of you can drive because now that you're not even going to win the drivers, we've just sacrificed the constructors because Yuki's being useless. And this time, okay, so another Q1 elimination for Yuki. He was only like 0.3 off Max, and it was still enough to be out in Q1. Starts the pit lane and goes nowhere, like just completely invisible in the race. And Max...
Go ahead.
I was going to mention, of course, Max did have his little coming together with Lewis, but yeah, otherwise didn't do much else.
I mean, that wasn't even a coming together. It was just Lewis being frightened off the circuit. But quickly before we move on to proper Red Bull, it'll be ironic if Lando Norris performed like Damon Hill for a lot of part of his career and then got kicked out of a team as he was about to win the World Championship, just like Damon Hill did. That'd be quite funny. I'd love to see that. But yeah, Red Bull. I mean, this is like we thought Bahrain was as bad as it could get. Yeah, no. And if Max is saying they're not going to win any more races for the rest of the season, watch them come out in Zandvoort or Monza and he manages to pull off a heroic win. That'd be the most Max thing of all time. But yeah, it's just not working at the moment because whether it's the case that they just didn't get the setup right, because we saw in Bahrain what it was, I think, was that they just couldn't get the setup right because they always turn up on Friday being the worst car ever made in history, and then they just kind of patch it up and fix it by Sunday. So for their sake, they got to hope it was just like that, just like it was in Bahrain. But if not, and this is genuinely the standard for what Red Bull's going to be, then yeah, they do need to focus on next season, and they just need to keep Max at bay until that moment comes. Yuki's actually doing somewhat well. I do maybe think that because we saw in some parts of 2024, for example, Baku, when they tried to dial that car back towards Perez's preferences, and he started doing better, and even in Baku, he was outperforming Max before he and Sainz came together. Considering how close Yuki's been getting over the last couple of weeks, especially in qualifying, you could argue that maybe that's why it's happening. Maybe that's why Yuki's closer, and maybe that's why Max has fallen down the order, more importantly. So maybe that could be the case that they are trying to dial the car back towards a more neutral handling perspective, but there's not really any point doing that nowadays because in this season, because as much as dialing back the car will maybe give Yuki a chance of points, even though he didn't get any points this race, it's giving Max like 8th or 9th, and it's better to have one driver getting 4th, 5th, even 6th than it is to have one driver getting 8th and the other getting 9th or 10th. So I think for the rest of the season they've got to keep dialing it towards Max, and then for next season they can make it more neutral.
Yeah, I mean, this dialing back, if it's happening, it's caused Max to have arguably his worst race of the season, finishing 9th, whereas Yuki managed to put on an average performance to finish 17th. So it's clearly, I have no idea why they would do this, because if Max can get consistently 5th and 4th places, then Yuki not scoring a single point the whole year is still worth it, because if both of them are fighting for 9th, then that's obviously the math isn't mathing in that case. And it's also interesting how Max sort of gave up, and then he made 4 overtakes into the chicane, which is like probably a record. I don't think any race has ever seen 4 overtakes into the chicane, especially not from the same driver. So it was great to see somebody have some creativity. Obviously had that move into Mansell where he just scared Hamilton off the track. Literally, he was like, "I'm gonna put my nose in," and Hamilton was like, "Yeah, you can have it. That's fine." And just left like. It was very interesting. Also, Hamilton then later decided to like not exercise his right to try to penalize Max, because, but first of all, Max finished 15 seconds ahead of Antonelli, so they couldn't, even a 10-second penalty wouldn't have made any difference. And well, who can be bothered to fuck around with the stewards for like, half an hour trying to get a meaningless penalty to someone? Like Hamilton surely has better things to do. So yeah, it's Max had definitely one of the more interesting races where he got stuck very quickly behind. He made a few moves and then got stuck behind Bortoleto and Alonso and could not overtake Bortoleto because he's in Alonso's DRS. And then and so Red Bull decided that, well, we surely have more pace than them, and then he just put Max off cycle, and so Max had to fight through his way the field constantly, and in the end he ended up in like 12th and managed to get up to 9th and then got stuck behind Lawson, and so he couldn't move forward. So Red Bull definitely out-strategized themselves, and he could have gotten probably a 7th place at least had they just kept him behind Bortoleto and just made Max sit in traffic for another 25 laps or so.
One thing I learned from that excellent monologue is that the Hungaroring has corner names. I didn't know that they had corner names.
Yeah, it has two. Mansell is named obviously after Mansell had that overtake where he's the lapped car. Like Senna or Piquet got stuck behind the lapped car, and then Mansell overtook him around the outside and into that corner, which turned into the inside for that corner. And also the other really fast corner, turn 11, I think, that right-hander. It's called a Lacey. It's not officially called a Lacey yet, but like it's been in Hungarian jargons, it's been called that for the past, I don't know, 15, 20 years or so. So it's gonna be what? I have no idea what's the story behind that one, but it's just called a Lacey. If I look it up, I'm sure I can find it, but yeah, I've not looked it up. So that's probably gonna be made official because turn 5 is officially Mansell by now. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know that either. But yeah, Max I suppose he got a bit screwed because he pitted early and had to make those moves, and made the moves at least. And Lewis probably thought, well, I haven't pitted yet. I'm not in this battle. Just let him through. It's just wasting time trying to. And also, he seems to have lost the will to live anyway. Yuki, like, he passed one driver in the race, and that was Colapinto, who had, 2 10-second pit stops or something. So he just didn't do anything. I mean, you kept ragging on Bahrain, but both drivers scored points in that race, so that alone is a victory. That's the fascinating thing, is that whenever the car sucks, that's when the second driver drives well, and Max can't do it. And it's weird. You would think, I get making it more neutral, but you would think that would almost make it, because I know that Max likes a raggedy car, but you think if it's more neutral, it's more low risk, and he could just still drive just as hard, and it's like it's just gonna work. But I don't know. For whatever reason, it doesn't work. But maybe next year they'll just try something different. Because I think they know as well. It doesn't make any difference if we bring Lawson back or give Hadjar a go, other than ruining their careers. They're not going to do any better, because that's just the way the car is. And then we'll probably bring in Lindblad to one of them. And yeah, I don't know. But then even then, it seems kind of unfair. Like, Yuki's been shit, but everyone's going to be shit in that car. So to get rid of him, Hadjar and Lawson, neither of them warrant being dropped either, unless one of them bags a seat somewhere else. If one of them tries Cadillac, I don't know, or whoever. But then everyone's like, well, Lindblad, we kind of have to give him a go. And yeah, we probably do. I don't know.
I think there's a couple of options that Red Bull have when it comes to their driver lineups. I mean, keeping the status quo is a safe option, because Tsunoda's career is dead in the water anyway. Like, even if he was to stay at Red Bull, it's not like he's going anywhere, because he's had he'll be entering his 6th season next year, and he's done nothing. Like, he's not been horrendous, he's not been awful, he's not been De Vries, but he's not been Vettel, he's not been Verstappen. So I think that keeping him wouldn't be tragic, but it also wouldn't be ideal. I think if you're going to bring Lindblad in, I think you've got to promote at least one of Hadjar or Lawson. If the car's more neutral balance, neutral handling, then I think you've got to put Hadjar in. But if it's more terribly handling, then Lawson's career is the one that's less good. So put him in so that Hadjar's career doesn't get ruined. There's a kind of situation. And as to the setup point you were making about how surely a more balanced car would make it like less risk and whatever. The best way I can explain it is with American oval racing. Obviously, on an oval, the fastest way to go around an oval is loose or oversteering. It is just the fastest way around, because it means that you can carry more momentum, you can carry more speed, as long as you can keep it together. And that's kind of the same as it is in circuit racing, being slightly on that edge of grip, being at 101%, is better than being at 99 or 98% when you're in, especially when you have a driver who can keep it like dead on set 100, 101% of what the car's capable of. So that's how I'd say it, because Max can keep the car loose or oversteery and do well. So when you have a car that's more neutral handling, it means he'll have more understeer. He can't have the same turning, for example, that he wants to. He doesn't have the same confidence with the car, even if it is temperamental. He can handle temperamental. He just can't handle understeer. It's kind of like Schumacher in a way. I don't remember Schumacher ever driving an understeery car, and when he did, like you could argue the early 2010s, he wasn't very good. So that kind of explains it.
Yeah. Well, either way, they need to fix it because now they're now fourth in the constructors, and they've fallen quite far behind Mercedes. I mean, they're at no risk of any of the other teams catching them from further back. You would think, unless Aston Martin keep getting double points finishes, maybe. But yeah, it's become a throwaway year. But Max, at least, I think he seems more content because he's just given up and doesn't care anymore. Like, it's amazing what indifference can do to your mental health sometimes.
Maybe Lando.
Maybe Lando needs to stop caring because, again, as we've seen, like Oscar doesn't care about anything or anyone, and it seems to work for him. Who's next? Williams. So we're jumping several places back to get to how mixed they all are at the front. Okay. Well, Albon qualified last. That was funny. Sainz made Q2, and then the race happened. There was some moves and some stuff, but they've gone down the toilet again.
If I'm being frankly honest, I literally I didn't see Williams all race. Literally didn't see.
I saw Sainz did some moves on someone, a blue car, one of the Alpines or somebody. There's a lot of the blue cars at the back of the grid in this race, and but they just didn't go anywhere because they're always thinking about next year. So they've always got that to think about instead of living in the here and now.
The Ferrari mentality, essentially. Except they are not even good right now. So I could make something up about Williams, but I can't. I can't remember a single thing they did throughout the whole race. It's just they went around for not even 70 for 69 laps. Nice because they even got lapped. So that's about everything they did.
I am somewhat puzzled about how Albon got himself knocked out in Q1 and to qualify last because he's normally pretty solid. Wasn't he in Q3 in Spa? He's normally pretty solid in.
Maybe he just made a mistake. Maybe he just made a mistake or something.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, it is very narrow. I mean, Sainz is normally the one that gets screwed in qualifying, not Albon.
Coming into the race, Albon was very depressive. He was saying that, oh well, this is gonna be our second worst track after Spain, so he doesn't expect any miracles. He was like, we're probably not gonna score any points. So he was very adamant that the car was gonna be absolutely awful because it's clearly not built for this very downforce dependent tracks, such as this track or Spain.
They're still, after all these years, all they know how to do is run in a straight line. Like they need to start making dragsters. They'd probably be excellent at that. They can't. It's still the same philosophy with their cars. But they existed. Good for them. Haas existed even less. I mean, that was okay. So Ocon near the end was 13th. I mean, he was 25 seconds behind Lewis, and then he's ended up 16th. So he must have really collapsed in those past two races, 2 or 3 laps. And then Behrman, qualifies 11th, and then he's carrying damage and retires, and that's them.
Do any of you know where damage came from? Because I don't remember seeing any replay of anything that involved Behrman, so I don't know if...
I feel like that someone got rear-ended by someone. Maybe that was George and Leclerc, actually. I'm sure there was... I think it was the floor, so he got hit and the diffuser was damaged.
Or some sort of curb, because they are quite
or
high.
The gravel, although how the gravel can... This is in carbon fibre, it's surprisingly brittle, it looks like. In your average Formula 1 crash, the car shatters into a million pieces.
I thought reasons, because if you'd rather a car shatter into a million pieces and the driver survive than have... Because that's what it was like in the 1960s safety. The car would be perfect, but the driver inside would be mashed.
Yes. It just is. I don't know. It just sometimes, but then you get this really minor damage, and then the car it loses all its pace or whatever. But I don't know where. I don't remember I remember there being small contact with some people, maybe not with him. But either way, yeah, he got damaged, and that was that. But other than that, again, another race of supreme reliability. It's becoming kind of unnerving how good it is now. Nobody except Antonelli has engine failures anymore.
Bring
And
back
it's not.
bring back 2012 engine reliability. Bring back
It's just
simple
that
aero.
it doesn't even cross your mind. Oh, we can just wait on a mechanical failure because I'm looking at a lot of 80s drivers at the moment, and it's ridiculous. Like I just look at it and I just think what the utter incompetence of the mechanics and engineers at that time. Because most of the cars, as well as being unreliable, they didn't drive well, but they also had serious problems with like integrity, structural integrity, because they would bend and warp and come apart as you're driving them, and you're like, why are these so bad?
I think I know. I think I know right the reason why they were all bad in the 80s. Which era, which period, apart from maybe the 1950s, had the highest ratio of Italians to any other engineer
Oh,
or driver in Formula One? I think
yeah,
it was
that
the 80s.
that might be it. That was also the last time Ferrari was a fully Italian outfit as well.
Yeah.
That might do it. It's just insane because you look at because it meant that like drivers like Prost and Senna had to actually put up with I might retire from this race because the engine's gone or the gearbox has fallen out of the car or something, and lose the lead while their teammate wins the race. These days that doesn't happen. You wouldn't stand for it. So many people are, oh, this is such an injustice if Piastri retires from the lead and Norris gets a free win or something.
Like,
But
try a 40% finishing ratio.
yeah, I mean, we see, Monaco 82 and stuff, races where like 5 cars finish the race. But even then, it's 5 cars are classified, but only 3 of them actually cross the finish line because the others ran out of fuel on the last lap or something. It's just so abominably not bad. And 1986, I think, is the worst year. The average finishing rate was 40%
Yeah.
in 1986. At the moment, it's about 92% in 2025. It's like they've really
Can I
got
just ask,
reliability
is
down
it
to
the
a
case
T.
that is it the case that back markers bring that average down in 86, or is it the case that everyone was just really bad?
Well, some teams were more unreliable than others. There were a lot of big shunts and stuff. I mean, they were obsessed with street circuits in the 80s, but it was a lot of stuff. I mean, most mechanical problems, it was either the turbos or the gearbox being destroyed by the turbo. Sometimes it would be suspension or chassis, but yeah, it was most of the. I mean, obviously there were some drivers that were just serial crashers, but for most people it was reliability. So teams like Ferrari, McLaren had it less than teams like Azella, maybe, but it's still just way too high, and you just don't. It's something you probably had to factor in. I suppose maybe they would think, well, okay, I've lost a win because of this, but then my rival's going to lose one at some point as well because of reliability. Yeah, something like that. So I don't know, but now it's turned around because go back 5 years, cars still broke down. Now they just don't. They've suddenly turned it around. Every team has turned it around in the past 2 seasons, all at the same time, and it's quite remarkable because they're all different engines and everything else is different, and they just suddenly worked out how to make a car run for 90 minutes without breaking down. Like whoopee.
Yeah, just get everybody the 2050 McLaren Honda powertrains, and then the issue is gonna be solved. If you think about it, there are 2 drivers on the entire grid who've had to deal with like an actually unreliable car, which are Alonso obviously in his McLaren Honda days, and Max Verstappen in 2017 when he retired from the first 40 races. He retired 7 times with some sort of engine failure. And yeah, basically they are the only 2 drivers who actually had an unreliable car, if you think about it, because none of the other long-time drivers had really unreliable cars in their career.
I think Alonso I think he's on about 70 or 80 retirements in his career. Lewis is on less than 30.
Yeah.
Max has about 60. It's insane. I mean, even with Lewis, I think he's had fewer than 20 mechanical failures in races, and 6 with Mercedes or something. Like,
I think there's a crazy stat that if Lewis was to compete in Formula One and go winless until 2065, he'd still have a higher win percentage than Alonso.
Yeah, I've seen that stat as well. It's a bit depressing, to be honest.
yeah, he has he's on about he's on just under 30%, isn't it? When Lewis, I mean, he peaked around 35%, I think, so he wasn't far off Fangio. But now it is, it's dropping ever more.
Yeah, he's not touch my go.
In the same way that Schumacher's had a really, really high win percentage until he came back with Mercedes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But what team were we even talking about? Haas. Yeah. Them. Last team was Alpine. That was funny. They just dropped to the back immediately. Colapinto has 2 shit pit stops, and then Gasly gets himself penalised for crashing into someone, and so he's classified last. Yeah, you can only laugh at just how wretched everything's going for the Flav on his return and his attempts to execute Order 66 or whatever he's planning to do with Formula One. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's not any. I mean, it's just fun. It's like, I mean, Colapinto. I'm hearing less and less from his like psychotic Argentinian fan base. Maybe they're losing the hype because he's not doing anything. He's getting no attention in the races because there's nothing to say or nothing to cover.
Yeah.
As well, and it's like, yeah, wow, look how much better he is than Jack Doohan. Yay. Isn't it hasn't it really turned your fortunes around, getting rid of him and throwing this one in? And Gasly is like, yeah, well, when the car's working, he's still driving supreme because he's been on it for like 5 years now, but they don't, shitty car and shitty team and blah blah, and they'll rebrand themselves next year when they're not Alpine. Well, I presume they will because then they're having the Mercedes engine, so they'll probably have to think of a name. I don't know what. High tech or what? Yeah, because Oaks is gone. And then they claim it's personal reasons. Yeah, the personal reason being your brother's on the run for embezzlement or corruption or whatever. I don't know what it was.
They might just set it out to like a title sponsor like BWT or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's what Benetton did. Well, that's what they did as Benetton. What were they? Yeah, what were they? I mean, because they're when they meant to be sponsored by OnlyFans or something.
That
they could become Bonnie Blue Racing.
Oh,
that'll be there,
and they can keep that light blue color.
Yeah, they'll move the drivers around, see if they can fuck 1,000 drivers' careers in one day. Just give everyone a seat, and yeah. And then suddenly it makes sense having. Is Sophia Flörsch still one of their juniors?
I don't. She was last year, but I'm not sure if she's still there.
Yeah, no one cares. Well, they can use her for marketing if they become, OnlyFans racing or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. We'll see. That's the only interesting point of note is what will their name be next year, and when will the Flav, give up or do what he's planned to do? Maybe Alonso will go back there. That would be funny. Full circle, rejoin the Flav. Okay.
Tops and flops.
Tops and flops. Tops. Alonso was good.
Yes.
Bortoletto was good.
Yes.
I can't say Lando because I just can't. Osama was good, I suppose. Yeah. Those 3. Yeah.
I'm trying to think.
Okay, I'm gonna go in the meantime. Definitely Alonso and Bortoletto. They definitely deserved being the 2 tops. And for the 3rd team, I'm just gonna nominate the McLaren engineering team because they just have a rocket ship. So good on them. Yeah,
I'll go with. I think we're all being a bit boring here. I'll go for Alonso Bortoletto, and then I'll go for Lawson for finally turning his career around.
Flops. Oh God. Everyone else, I don't know. Okay. Well, Lewis is a flop. Alpine are a flop. I don't think Leclerc is really on him, but he's not a flop. Yeah. Who else was like really bad?
Hulkenberg, I just said.
Oh, maybe him.
Hulkenberg finished 13th from being the last. He wasn't actually that terrible, to be honest.
On a really weird strategy as well with the softs
he would
no. Ocon collapsed near the end. Williams didn't do anything. Max, well, the thing is, the car sucked, but he himself drove well, so that's not on him.
You could say Yuki. That's a bit of a boring choice, but
yeah, maybe Yuki. Yeah.
Yeah.
Red Bull's philosophy, maybe.
Yeah. I'm just gonna say the Ferrari, Red Bull, and Alpine, just like the whole of the team, except for 3 drivers in Leclerc, Verstappen, and Gasly were all just like, nah. And even Gasly was terrible. So just except for Leclerc and Verstappen, everything else related to those 3 teams basically was a flop.
Yeah, I'll just go Hamilton, Sonoda, and who was the other driver you said, Peter?
Oh, who did I don't remember.
I'm just going to leave it there then. There's no need to put a third driver.
Alpine was the other driver.
We don't even care, so I'll just leave it at 2. I know we're not supposed to.
Yeah,
we don't
yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a bit deflating because it's I mean, now we've got 4 weeks to go. I mean, by Hungary standards, it was okay because the racing it's always a strategy type track unless it's wet. And so from that perspective, I guess it was interesting, but it's just a bit,
Unless it's dead or Bianchi just died. That's the two caveats effectively.
Yeah. Have you so Chizzy, have you been to the race before?
Yeah, I've been. I was very small. I was like 5 years old, so I don't
Right.
remember much of it. But I was at the race, and I also been to like the Fridays. I've been to multiple times because that's actually fairly affordable. So yeah, I've been there to races. Yeah,
because I mean,
it's fairly cheap,
yes.
and the toilet situation is awful. Like it's I don't know if like Monza had the similar problems of like people need to wait 3 hours, and uh, now as well the Hungarian media was flooded with people saying that the upgrades were very good, that like they renovated everything, but they still needed to wait like 3 hours in line to get to the toilet. So that's still a problem.
Because they did. I mean, we saw this year they built a brand new paddock, very
Yeah.
nice pit building that looks similar to Silverstone's one. Yeah, I mean Silverstone. Well, I don't remember there being queues for toilets or anything when I was there a few weeks ago. But yeah, Hungary. People like to go to that one. That one and Imola are the cheap ones, and they're also in very good locations. So everyone likes to go to them. To have Budapest so nearby is obviously a big selling point for it.
Yeah.
It's just a shame the racing is not as it's rarely as good as it could be. Like the wet races have all been fun, but the other normally they're just very ordinary races. But it's a good circuit at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
It's
I mean, once
still
again,
longer than Suzuka.
yeah, it's like the third longest tenured race, I think, compared to the others.
Uninterrupted as well.
Yeah.
Actually,
It's been every year since 1986 or something like that.
it's longer than Silverstone because Silverstone's uninterrupted run has been since '87.
Yes.
Suzuka was '87. Monza has been uninterrupted since '81.
Yeah. Since 83.
No. Spa since 2007.
Oh yeah, shit, because they had 2000s.
Yeah, there was no race in 2006 or 2003.
Brazil. Oh no, Brazil didn't have any 2020 race.
No.
Yeah.
Monaco missed 2020 as well. Wait, did they race the Hungaroring in 2020?
Yes.
Yes,
was a
they
race
did. Yeah.
there.
It was the third race, wasn't it?
Spain.
Spain since 1991.
Yeah, they haven't been using the track for as long. I think it's only Monza that has been every single year.
We're going to have missed one. I know we are, and it's going to bug me.
Silverstone.
Silverstone's 87.
Yeah.
Damn.
I think it is Monza. Goes back the uninterrupted run 44 years now. Yeah. So good showing there to keep it, and also the only race in Eastern Europe, if that counts as Eastern Europe, which I think it does. But yeah,
it does. Culturally, it's definitely Eastern Europe, even if it geographically might not be.
Well, that's the thing, is people say, like, for me, like, Central Europe is like an overlap, because I would say, for me, Eastern Europe is like Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and everything to the east of that. But then Central Europe would be those three countries, but also like Germany and Austria. Like Central Europe is like the nice, tasteful, classic cities with these lovely architecture and everything's pretty. And then full-blown Eastern Europe is the like post-Soviet just dirges like Belarus and Ukraine and Moldova and stuff like that, where it's all these horrible concrete blocks and everything. Yeah.
I mean, I myself in one of these horrible concrete blocks, so it's definitely
Central Europe has the really nice classic cities and everything. Yeah.
We do. Yeah, it's interesting. We are the ones who we were ruled by the Soviet Union, but we weren't technically a part of the Soviet Union. So we still had the culture. We just had a tiny bit more like Western stuff incoming. So we managed to develop a tiny bit further, even though our government for the past 15 years is trying to kneecap every single bit of progress we could make, or the European Union could make. So it's not been the best situation, but yeah.
I mean, obviously that plays into the history of the circuit because Bernie in the 80s was desperate to have a race in the Soviet Union. And they were
Yeah.
like, well, we can give you, Soviet Union Light, Hungarian People's Republic. You can have that one because it's, it's behind the Iron Curtain, but it's not completely USSR. It's just sort of a puppet state. And you can have that maybe. So it's like,
Yeah.
okay, Hungary then. And I think the Hungarian Grand Prix hadn't run since like the 1930s as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that'd been a long time coming. Even so, it's funny with that we've only had one Hungarian driver who himself was like half Austrian.
Yeah.
And otherwise, the only other people, like, there was, we had Laszlo Todt in F3 a couple of years back.
Yes.
There's someone else who was doing something. It was like Euroformula Open or Frecker.
Yeah, Molnar Martin, I think he was called. There was he's doing like British F4 or something like that, I think.
Right.
Like finished
I'm sure-
somewhere higher up in the rookie standings or whatever. So
There's someone else. It wasn't him. I think they did Frecker or one of the Euroformula ones or Eurocup 3, and then they just went off into. He's off in the sports car scene. But yeah, otherwise there aren't really any Hungarians in the works that we might see in Formula One at the moment.
Unfortunately, racing is a very expensive sport, and Hungary is just most people simply don't have the opportunity to even go karting, which is like it's still like a huge burden to just like go, not even like to an actual go karting season, like just go rental karting is something that probably some like 60% of families couldn't afford simply. So yeah, I mean, I live in a sort of upper middle class family as far as Hungarian standards are concerned, and I could go to go karting like once every month, basically, go 3 times, or like go around the track, go 3 sessions, basically. So like that's about the maximum an upper middle class family can afford. So unless you're born into like an actual properly like rich oligarch family, you're just never gonna get to anywhere.
Yeah,
That's
you
why
need to be descended from the Esterházys or someone like that.
yeah,
And,
something like that.
Did so other than the Hungaroring, like what other circuits are there in Hungary?
Yeah, that's the Balaton Ring, which is built fairly recently, which is where MotoGP or something like that goes to.
Okay.
And then we also have multiple like small tracks that are more akin to go-kart tracks than actual racetracks. So
Yes,
we don't really have any other actual useful proper circuits.
I mean,
Like none of them are like comparable to even like Brands Hatch Indy is like comparable to most of them. Like that layout. Like they are just.
So Hungaroring is the only Grade 1 circuit then.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in the UK, I mean, Silverstone. I think Brands Hatch is Grade 1. But we've got tons of other circuits, but they're little ones, and basically every large town or city has at least one go-kart track, even if it's an indoor one.
Yeah.
So the UK is just that we're just really well catered for motorsport.
That's quite interesting because I'm in a lot of league racing communities, and a lot of them are kind of more Eastern European inclined, and they have a lot of circuits. Like for example, I'm in a Polish league that goes to like places like Tor Poznan and Most Autodrom. So the fact that Hungary only has Peloton and the Hungarian surprises me, because there are, like, for example, Poland and Czech Republic have like several big class circuits, like for example Brno and Most and Tor Poznan, and there's another high class racetrack in Poland. That surprises me.
Yeah, I mean they are definitely better run countries, and they simply develop more. So we were kind of kneecapped in what we can do since I don't know, since the 1500s. We've been under some sort of rule who try to prevent us from developing. So it's not been the best of times for the past 600 years, but it's gonna improve, I'm sure.
That's Eastern Europe in a nutshell. Everything's been shit for the past 600 years, just constantly being colonized and raped and pillaged and conquered and all of that. Yeah. Usually by the Germans. Or them or whoever, the Russians. Yeah,
Mongolians.
all of those. Yeah. We don't have that. We just throw rocks at the French a few times, and that's about. Well, we're the ones conquering everyone. Otherwise, normally. So summer break, everyone switches off and does nothing, and then we come back to it with Zandvoort. Is this the last? No. Next year's the last Zandvoort, isn't it?
I think
26.
So.
Yeah, 26.
Okay. Well, similar. Another tight track, no overtaking. Maybe we'll get some rain. But then if we get some rain, we won't get a race. So we'll see. You've been listening to the DRS Train podcast. We're on YouTube and Spotify, and you can find us at the DRS Train podcast. If you become a channel member, you get early access to videos. You also get some behind the scenes footage, and you can join our current members, Birak Choshkun, Chris O'Dea, and Blue Guy. Make sure to tune in for our next episode. Stay safe, and we'll see you all next time.
Bye.
Bye.